that children bring phones to school and they play secretly in the toilet or in lessons. This distract them a lot and it has a lot of disadvantage to it. And uh our side supports that banning mobile phone in school is beneficial. First, banning phones in school is beneficial in education, in their grades. Because if they have phone in lesson or in times, they will not listen in lessons. And if they don't listen in lesson, their grade will decrease, and their interest not in like studies no more. So their education is definitely gonna drop, and also for sleeping time. Like for boarding those kids in schools, they I have friends who hits like those phones in school, and they secretly play them. Banning phones will not that those things will not happen. They have more sleeping time, so they will focus more in the lesson, and their mental health and their physical health both will be better for their personal growth, for long term growth. If you never listen, you'll get in a bad university and you won't have a good future. And for short term, you'll just be happy, and then your current grade will be really bad, which is not beneficial either. And you can't prevent all of these things happening in phones. There's inappropriate things in phones. There is cyberbullying. There's all of these stuff which cause a lot of problems that you shouldn't have if you don't have any phones in school. Also, banning phones is beneficial. Our first argument is that mobile phone does not help in their studies, and it will actually lead them to a worse situation for their current grade. First of all, kids use AI a lot right now since AI is very like fast, good, and we don't have to think. And kids use their phones in schools. Probably gonna use AI to check all the homework. They don't do homework. They're probably gonna use AI to like they use their AI to do everything for them, and their brain. I don't think their brain can think that much no more if they use AI every day. And kids will definitely rely on AI. I'm a kid. I am very lazy. I do not want to think by myself. If I have AI in school, I will not think, and I will 100% use AI. And that is very bad. Okay. Second is that uh with using phone is there's no purpose of using phone in school. As the info side is talking about for texting, messaging, and go online, sometimes might just get distracted by messages and calling. Our opponent might talk about they're gonna use their phones to text after school, but there's teachers who have those phones for them, and there is front counter which you have phone to call. And I'll be talking about why simply regulation would not work. Why regulation will not work if they have a box, maybe they'll put their phones. This will not work because in our school there is no such things, but the students still hide their phones in the toilet and they still play secretly, and they bring switches to school and they play in lesson. This regulating just won't work. Why we have to ban it? First of all, if we ban it, there will be no such thing as playing phones uh in lessons, which their education would be better. Maybe not better, but still way better than with the distraction of phone in lesson. Second, uh, there's second that banning phones they will be actually more focused and unlike like they're gonna go phone every second. They're gonna check their messages from their besties every they're waiting for them, so they're hard they're not focusing on their grade enough. So conclude my speech. AI is not beneficial, and no, I mean mobile phone is not beneficial because it's AI that distracts them, and it's also lead to bad grades and of personal growth. So please vote for our side. Thank you.
At this speech, I'm going to first produce a counter model, and then I will produce my first argument, which is about autonomy and modernity, and my second argument about self-control and self-discipline. Now, firstly, about my counter model. Instead of a blanket ban, we would advocate for stricter regulations for the use of mobile phones at school, at our SAM school. Well, we all use mobile phones, but like many high school, we implement a regulated use of mobile phones, such as asking students to put them outside the classroom in a public bag before each lesson. And phones are allowed, but with structured guidelines. For example, only permitted during breaks, lunch, and designated study times, and also classroom use only when it explicitly incorporates this into the curriculum. Well, now move on to my first argument. My principles are autonomy and modernity. Well, first, for the principle of autonomy, it denies self-regulation practice. Adults manage phones daily, for example, in meetings and so on, but bans take away low-stakes opportunities for students to learn this skill. Without guidance, students enter college or work unprepared to self-control. And also, it undermines trust and agency. Bans send a message, we don't trust you, eroding students' respect, especially when phones serve legitimate needs, for example, note taking and checking on family, and flexible rules, for example, used for academics with permission, honor autonomy, and build accountability. And third, last but not least, it hurts personalized learning. Students rely on phone for accessibility, for like text to speech for dyslexia, or prefer tools like typing notes. Ban force a one size fits all approach, ignoring individual needs. Now, the impact for this argument is that uh, 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 the impact of this argument is that it stunts self-regulation skills because without low-stakes practice, for example, putting phones away during class, using them only for notes, students lack preparation for college or work, where unmonitored phones is a
UI.
standard. Oh, sorry, but later. And also for erode trust and engagement. Bad signals we don't trust you to make good choices, weakening student teacher support. They disengaged students may act out or disinvest in class, and they feel their agency is dismissed. Now I will accept the POI.
You were talking about self-control. Why do you think that kid has self-control? Me as a kid, I try to control myself not to use AI. Is there any way that you could like train their self-control on not using their phone to text, or maybe go on internet or using AI?
Well, actually, just how we said in our country model, we will have strict rules for when you can use these mobile phones and how you can use it. So you can actually maintain your self control when you are trying to obey the rules, just like most person they need to do. And so we need to practice this skill. If we did if we ban this mobile phone, we cannot practice this. That's the point. And so now move on to my second argument. Second argument is about self-control and self-discipline. My warrant is that self-control and self-discipline are important aspects of modern society. Well, firstly, with many entertainment and distracted activities running free in a world dominated by social network, it is crucial to teach students the importance of self-control from a young age. And secondly, the school supplies the students with ways of self-control that are practical, even when staying home alone or at other circumstances. So these cannot be taught through forceful restriction and absolute bans on mobile phones. So the impact for this argument is that it builds a life skill that is even more important in the later stage of one's life, and also it constructs a sense of logic behind the surface of restriction that impacts the understanding of students. Press your pose.
In my rebuttal speech, I'm going to be rebutting to my opponent's contentions, like strategically to my own contentions, and like finally giving like an extension. So first of all, like our opponent's points are regulations and in weakening student-teacher support. So first of all, on the regulations, we would like to point out that like these regulations will not work if our opponents are going to set these regulations. These kids are still going to get distracted by the phones because they are going to secretly be bring these phones. Like most students nowadays, they do not want to hand their phone to some weird teacher that they don't like for like the rest of the day until they can get it back. And they're also worried that like the teacher will not be there when they go find them. So this is not going to work. The students are actually going to hide the phones away from the teacher, and they're still going to get distracted. So this point is not standing on our opponent's side because it does not help. The regulations do not help. The students will still like be distracted by it. This is why we're going to ban it completely and then create like strict rules and then create strict banning in order so that like distract them in class. Second of all, if the regulations does work, it means that our opponents are supporting our side. Our side is saying that like these mobile phones can distract them in class. So our opponents like agree to us by saying that there's going to be regulations. So yeah, so they're either helping us or their point doesn't make any sense. And then the second point was that if we can student teacher support, this point doesn't have a lot of logic. They're saying that like there's not enough trust between the students and the teachers after they have the phones. So like this point, so about this point, as we have already said, there's not going this is actually going to distract them in class. George, imagine if you were a teacher and then like you're teaching with it and then you find out that everyone in your class is like, and then like their head is down and looking at a phone. How would you feel that if it was like that and like no one was listening to you? Definitely it would be bad, right? It does, as my first speaker has already said, it does not help in our studies. It distracts us, and then like we cannot like get better at these studies. And then so like now I'm going to give like starting to my team's contentions and like giving an extension. Our side's point was inappropriate because like this point is something our opponents cannot like respond. Is that if we bring like our phones to school, we add all of our like schoolmates and like take an example, we get a humongous group chat. There is many people who don't have enough access to phones. There are people who do not have access to the same like type of like social media service. Like for example, other people might be using WeChat, but this person is using like WhatsApp. So it means it's going to lead to cyberbullying, and it's ultimately going to lead to bullying through isolation, which means that everyone else is going to be using this type of text while you are not. This is also called peer pressure, where like everyone else is doing this but you are not, which is going to be kind of like bullying to a lot of people. Our opponents cannot respond to this, so this is why we're going to ban phones from school, because it's going to be distracting them not only for bullying but also for these kind of like social media services. Imagine if you were a student, you're going to school and then suddenly you see like your WhatsApp texting that everyone is like laughing at you because like you did something bad. So this is going to be distracting them from class. So this is why our opponents cannot solve this problem at all. Our opponents' first contention, two scenarios, first one contradicting and the second one is helping our side. And then their second point does not have any sense because there's going to be bullying and there's not going to be weakening student teacher support. This is why at the end of the day, we believe that the mobile phones are actually going to cause cyberbullying, does not help in our study, distract us, and it's not going to help and distract us in class. It's going to distract us in class. So this is why at the end of my day, I urge a strong government ballot. Thank you.
On to rebuttal for the opponent's side. First of all, clarification. So the a proposition completely misunderstood our argument because they framed our argument as proposition. On the other hand, on the pro side, ban equals exclusion, prohibition, and removal of phones entirely. On the other hand, on our side, regulation means control structured use of phones with clear boundaries. These are fundamentally different models. A ban avoids the problem where regulation solves it. So why a regulation is superior? So first of all, we advocate for educational preparedness because regulation teaches students how to manage technology responsibly, preparing them for university and workplaces, while a ban leaves them unready. And second of practicability. Regulation is enforceable through rules and text solutions, for example, like Wi-Fi restrictions, classroom policies, etc. A ban is completely unenforceable and resource intensive and also breeds non-compliance. Judge, this is false equivalence. Regulation is not prohibition. It's like saying speeding limits means that we support like banning cars. So our model addresses their concerns while avoiding the harms of their ban. So this is why fundamentally our case outweighs theirs. Now moving on to our extension on slippery slopes and the practicability of enforcement. So a ban on mobile phones established a precedent that schools can prohibit widely used technology because they pose potential distractions. Once this principle is established and accepted, it becomes difficult to draw a clear boundary between what is permissible and what is prohibited. And there's also the risk of overreach because the slippery slope is not hypothetical. History shows that institutions often expand restrictions once the initial justification is accepted. So a ban on phones could evolve into broader restrictions on personal technology, limiting students' access to tools essential for modern education. And the impacts, and next moving on to the impact on educational preparedness. By progressively excluding personal technology, school risks creating an environment detached to the realities of higher education and the workplace, while the digital tools are indispensable and impact. So this basically undermines the very purpose of schooling, which is preparing students for a life beyond classrooms. And there's also the issue of student resistance and non-compliance, which means that students are likely to conceal phones or bring secondary devices, making enforcement inconsistent and effective, like my partner has just mentioned. Now, moving on to rebuttals. So the first rebuttal on their slide on how phones cause distraction. Distraction is not inherent to the device, but how it is being managed. So schools already regulate other potential distractions. For example, like talking in classes, passing notes, misuse of laptops, etc. The phones can be similarly regulated through structured policies rather than outright banning and blanket ban and that kind of stuff. So teaching students on how to manage attention in the presence of technology is a vital skill for higher education and the workplace. A ban completely avoids the problem and basically instead of preparing students to handle it. The impacts here are abandoned students see access and chance to develop self-discipline, like my partner already mentioned, and digital focus, leaving them less prepared for real world environments. Now moving on to second rebuttal on the issue of bullying and misuse. The bullying is a social issue. Removing phones does not eliminate bullying. So Judge, I want to highlight the point is in which it merely shifts to other mediums rather than cyberbullying and that kind of stuff. So the solution here lies in education, clear frameworks, and support systems. Impacts here are, first of all, a ban risks ignoring the root causes of bullying, leaving students vulnerable once they leave the controlled school environment. Second of all, teaching responsible online interaction builds resilience and awareness, equipping students to navigate digital spaces safely. And third of all, this creates a long-term protection, whereas prohibition leave students unprepared and exposed once they regain access outside school. Judge, that is why I would like to strongly urge for a calm ballot. Thank you.
3-2 on my speech goes. First, in the debate, I'm going to rebut the argument of the con side, and I'll talk about two clashes during the whole debate. So first, I heard that the con side talk about we shouldn't just ban this mobile phone in school immediately. We should use a rule that we could let the teacher to help the student control the phone. The student gives the phone to the teacher, and the teacher help them to control that. Don't let them play secretly in the toilet. Then they can still use the phone when they need. But actually, that's if you use these rules to control the phone, it actually makes the student more probably to take the phone to school, because if you just ban the phone immediately, first the student need to steal the phone from the parents and take to school, and they need to hide the phone under every teacher's eyes. But now with the rules that they could cheat the parent and said already to give the phone to the teachers, and the teacher will not doubt that the student is hiding a phone. So and also that the students could just give the phone to the teacher, then they could steal it back. So actually, if you have the rule and you want to let the teacher control the phone, it will actually make much more students take phone to the school, and more students will secretly play it. So this will cause a very big harm. And now I'll talk about two clashes about the debate. And the first one is about convenience versus health. That I heard the consides talk about the phone could be very useful in the school. That is very convenient. You could use it to call your parents while you're after school, and you could use it to take note in class. And the conside also believe that students have enough ability to do the self-control, that they won't play it too much. But actually, that our pro side already proved that the students don't have enough self-control to keep away from the phone during the rest time. And also that if the students take the phone and they could secretly play it during the night and play it in the class. So if they play in night in toilet, so they will have less time to sleep, and this will really harm to their health and growth. And if you really want to call to a parent or take notes, that you could use a watch to call, and you could use a notebook to take notes. So if the con side says that the convenience is more important than health, that our side's not agreed, that we think health is more important. And also, if you want convenience, you can use other things like notebook and watch, but not mobile phone. And also for the second clash, is about information technology skill versus knowledge, other knowledges in class. That's the concept that if you take phone to the school, you can use AI, and this will help you to learn those IT skills, and this will be very useful in the society. But okay.
So if your concern is that phones may cause distractions, why do you believe that banning them entirely is more effective than teaching students on how to manage technology responsibly?
So do you mean that whether if you ban the phone, the student will still take phone to the school, right?
Excuse me?
Is it what you mean? Sorry, I'll just keep my speech. I didn't understand. Our process already proves that the student will secretly play the phone during the class, so that it will cause them so they won't listen to the teacher and they can't learn any knowledge in the class. And our side believes that if you want to learn the IT school, then you will let student to stop learning other knowledges. I think it's not worth. And if you really want to let student learn about IT skill, then you could use the instrument from the school, that this will be more safer to students, that they won't play it in the class. So thank you.
First, I would like to do some definition and restate some of our cases. So the opponent have misunderstood our part about the autonomy and modernity and self-control and self-discipline parts of our case. So we have said that forceful restrictions might have the opposite effects on students, especially in their teenage years when students reach the peak and the desire of rebelling against any rule. So they have no reason to say that this is of no logic. So when students reach the peak and the desire, they feel uncomfortable with any aggressive bans such as the ones that proposition advocates for, and it might evoke only further yearnings for freedom of right and liberty. So it doesn't work with it. So if they said that regulations won't work, it works the same with bans. If bans are still there, students might think of ways of secretly sneaking phones into a school, which is the same as why they said that regulations won't work. So their argument for this one doesn't stand. And our striving for education of self-control is this way through which students can learn the impact of losing it and face the consequences directly, which makes it more ideal than bans. So now moving on to the clashes. There's three main clashes in this debate. This is the first one is over practicality. The second one is over education and preparedness. And the third one is mainly over self-control and distraction. So the first clash. The opposition said that a blanket ban is the only solution to mobile phone usage in school. So we can cross-apply our third argument on practicality. Our second speaker already said that it is a practical implementing restrictions is a practical thing. So enforcing a ban on mobile phones requires constant monitoring, confiscation, and administrative oversight. So students will resist, conceal devices, or bring secondary phones, making enforcement inconsistent and ineffective. The schools will need to divert resources into surveillance and discipline rather than teaching. So why should we win? There is the same problem with bans. How can you ensure that they don't bring it in secret, as I have said before in the class clarification? And we can have other restrictions such as point deductions. And while schools school-provided computers are useful, they cannot substitute for personal devices, and computers are typically restricted to certain rooms, times, or supervised context, limiting flexibility. And moving on to the second clash, so they said that there's no purpose of phones and leads to cyberbullying, the usage of AI and health, and when health is contradicted with convenience, health is more important. So this can be classified as a slippery slope. They have said that the usage of AI is not so. We say that the concern of AI misuse is not unique to mobile phones. Students can access AI on laptops, tablets, or home computers. This is not what mobile phones caused. So banning phones does not eliminate the possibility of AI-assisted homework. It merely shifts the access point. So they also said that it undermines academic focus, thus thus resulting in a whole consequence such as sleep loss and health issues. So phones can be powerful academic tools when integrated properly. They provide access to dictionaries, translation apps, calculators, research platforms, and educational resources that normal laptops cannot provide so conveniently. So the impact is that proper integration increases engagement and makes learning interactive, bridging the gap between traditional teaching and modern digital learning. So a ban risks leaving students behind in a global education system that embraces technology, reduces competitiveness, and higher education and employment. So thirdly, they said that our top point on autonomy and self-control does not stand. So why they're wrong? We have explained clearly in my classification that this is actually an important skill for later usages, such as in work and other university courses, so that they need to learn the skill in the early ages. So proud to oppose.
For staircase, they first said that phones cause distraction. We showed how distraction exists with or without phones, and regulation teaches focus. Second of all, they say that phones enable bullying. We proved that bullying is a social issue and that digital citizenship is the real solution. Third of all, they claim that phones undermine academics and cause unnecessary distraction and is unnecessary in school. We show that phones are, first of all, a powerful tool for research, translation, and accessibility. Second of all, we show that they are lifelines in emergencies and are essential for inclusion. And last of all, they said how banning creates equality and how this is basically leading to the problem of bullying and such. We showed how it entrenches inequality, as wealthier students have alternatives while poorer students lose their only tool. It showed every one of their points either collapses under scrutiny or is outweighed by our impacts. Now, our case, we presented clear reasons on why banning phones is impractical, inequitable, and harmful to education. On practicability, we showed that enforcement is unworkable, wastes resources, and fosters adverse relationships between students and staff. Second of all, on inequality, we demonstrated that bans disproportionately harm poor students who lose their only means of communication and digital access, while wealthier students continue to benefit from alternative devices. Last of all, on educational preparedness, we proved that regulation and integration of phones build digital literacy, self-discipline, and responsibility, skills that are essential for higher education and the workplace. Judge, they had no adequate response to any of these arguments. Recognize that even if you give them every single argument, we still win this debate because our impacts outweighs theirs. Recognize their impacts on, first of all, educational preparedness, second on the equity and inclusion, third of all on practicability and school culture, and last of all on adaptation to technology. They had no adequate responses to any of these, and thus, Judge, I would like to urge for a common ballot. Thank you.
As reply speaker, I'm going to be the final word of the debate. I'm going to frame the debate to my class and final opposition message. First of all, Judge, imagine a world where you're a teacher and then you see you're doing a very good class and then you're teaching your students important information. Then you look down and see all of your students with their heads down and looking at their phone. What would you feel like? Of course, you would feel bad. This is the status quo in today's debate, and this is why we believe that the phones are actually going to be distracting to the students. And in my speech, I'm going to be framing the debate to make class and final opposition message. First of all, framing the debate, whichever side actually benefits more shall win this debate. We believe our side is more more realistic, and more beneficial because this students are getting distracted by the phones. Our opponents give regulations and all of these stuff, but they won't work because of the fact that they're getting distracted too much. The students will still bring their phones secretly and look at them. And then now moving on to the two major clashes on digital stability and also on the health, the phone and study health. So first of all, on a digital stability, our side believes that our opponents are much worse at this because as I've already said, bullying for isolation happens. And the second major clash on the studying health, our opponents are literally just letting students bring something that will distract them during class. Why would they do this? This is not beneficial to any to the students. So lastly, what our final opposition message is that the phones are actually going to be distracting to students in this class. They cannot resist the temptation to bring their phones. The phones are not even good. They're going to be distracting from studies, and also they're also there's going to be bullying for isolation, and there's also going to be inappropriate stuff like cyberbullying, and also fake and harmful information. So this is why at the end of the speech, we urge a strong government ballot. Thank you.